meeting with a pledge of the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll start tonight's meeting with a public hearing to consider a resolution transferring the sum of $21,000 from the village's PMI Amphitheater Maintenance Reserve Fund in order to pay for the various repair and maintenance projects to be completed in the 2019-2020 budget year. Do you have the proof of publication?
Notice is hereby given that pursuant to Section 7-706 of the Village Law and Section 6-D of the General Municipal Laws of the State of New York, and pursuant to resolution of the Village Board of the Village of Baldwinsville, adopted June 20th, 2019, a public hearing will be held by the Board of the Village of Baldwinsville at the Village Hall, 16 West Genesee Street, Baldwinsville, New York, 13027. On the 18th day of July 2019 at 7:30 p.m. to consider a resolution transferring the sum of $21,000 from the village's PMI Amphitheater Maintenance Reserve Fund in order to pay for the various repair and maintenance projects to be completed in the 2019-2020 year. At the time and place of the hearing, all interested persons will be given an opportunity to be heard by the order of the Village Board of the Village of Baldwinsville, dated June 26, 2019, submitted by Maureen Butler, Village Clerk.
Thank you. Just so everybody understands, this is money that was budgeted. And a while back, last year, I believe, we changed some of our reserve accounts in order for us to spend the money, we had to have a public hearing so people knew we were using money from that account. So this is money that we had budgeted and planned to use from that account, and now this is the official legal process of transferring it out so we can pay those bills. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposal? Seeing none, is there anybody wishing to speak against the proposal? Seeing none, can I get a motion to adjourn and close the public hearing?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Now we'll move on to the regular meeting. Can I get a motion to approve the village board meeting minutes from June 20th, 2019?
Moved. Second.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right. Next item is citizens' comments. Anybody wishing to address the board can come to the microphone, give us your name, address, and what's on your mind.
Would this be appropriate to discuss the sidewalk?
This is when you would do it.
My name is Donna Shah. My husband, Michael Shah, and I have lived at 47 Mildred Ave for 36 years. We've taken great pride in our property. We've done a lot of improvements. We've removed compromised trees, diseased trees, done a lot of work to our property. If you can imagine my house, very close to the street, I have front steps and I have a walkway that goes over to our driveway. Measuring from the landscaping that I have in front of that walkway out to the street is 19 feet. What the village engineer has proposed is taking 5 feet from the street, running a 5-foot walkway across my yard, which will leave me 10 feet between the two walkways. We blow our driveway up the driveway and into the side yard because I have a large garden, so we can't blow it over into the garden. We blow the walkway from my house into the front of the yard. We're going to have 10 feet of clearance to blow the sidewalk that the village is proposing, and my walk, I'm going to have snow, if it's possible, to blow both of them into the center of my front yard. Another issue, back 10 years ago, we had to dig up our sewer line because we had Orangeburg pipe, and we had 3 large trees over in that corner where the pipe came out and corrupted the sewer line. Those trunks are still underneath the ground. We had them ground out, but they're under the surface. That's going to go right underneath where the walkway is. That's going to disrupt my front yard. And then on the other side of my driveway, there was a tree that was corrupted with carpenter ants, and it came down. Again, we had that tree taken down, but that's right in line with the sidewalk. My sewer vent is right in line with the sidewalk. A new tree that we put in 10 years ago, a nice river birch, is right in line with that sidewalk. And on the other side, my lilac bush that's been there, it's a very mature lilac bush, is right in line with the sidewalk. It's going to disrupt our whole front yard, and I have pictures to show. May I bring them up?
Sure.
And I do mow my lawn religiously.
Thank you.
That's you right here?
Yes, it is. But that's an old picture.
Well, it's got the new tree, I see. That little one.
It's a little bit larger now.
Oh, my goodness, so this is old.
I haven't changed, Mike.
They do.
Pictures. And I tried to superimpose what the walk would look like going across my front yard. This is where the trees are.
I might comment that Steve came out to the house and proposed instead of a 5-foot walk, a 4-foot walk.
But it will just
It's
barely
still an
clear.
infringe on the trees, and you're gonna have to cut the roots of the tree.
We've lived there 36 years without a sidewalk. I don't understand what the necessity is at this point. There is a sidewalk that runs the full length on the other side of the street, and on our side of the street, the sidewalk ends about halfway down the street.
See, that is an issue for us. We think that sidewalk should continue, for people on that side of the street to have a sidewalk. That's was established about 10 years ago. It was a public hearing for people to come in and talk about whether they like the idea of sidewalks, and it was determined at that time that the village should replace bad sidewalks and eventually get around to putting sidewalks where there were no sidewalks, so that people did not have to walk in the road. I understand some people walk on the road even if there's sidewalks.
They do.
They do.
But they can't walk on the sidewalk if there isn't a sidewalk. You know,
It's going to disrupt, we will have no front yard. And what are you going to do about my sewer vent and all of those tree
that's why he gets
trunks?
paid the big bucks, so he can figure out all those problems. I mean, that's,
And my tree and my lilac bush.
it's happened on every street that we've done. There's been issues. And
When we replaced the sewer line, Claude Sykes was there, and he agreed with the contractor who was doing the sewer line that was a good place for the sewer vent. There was no discussion then about a sidewalk.
that was, Claude was gone before the sidewalk issue
And
came
so are
up.
most of the people on the town board.
But I walked it with your husband. The vent's not in the way, so the vent's not an
It's
issue.
going to be right next to the sidewalk.
It might be adjacent to it. We got literally hundreds of it, just like it, throughout the village. I mean, it doesn't present an issue.
And there's no concern
The
for curb
biggest
appeal.
issue is where to put the
Where
snow.
are we going to put the snow?
Oh, well, then that's the issue?
Well,
I mean, so what's the issue? Is it the vent, is it the tree, or is it the lilac?
Tree.
Okay, the tree's not in the way. The tree's even back further than the vent.
What about the trees?
And the lilac
that are
is-
underneath?
We've built sidewalks over old trees. I'll bet you nearly every foot of sidewalk in the village is within, 20 feet of an old tree.
We have trouble keeping the kids out of our yard as it is. You're going to put.
So the issue is the kids. It's not the vent, it's not the
It's all
tree.
of it. You're going to destroy my curb appeal. I worked so hard on our house, on our yard.
Okay. So I guess my question is, I can't make a statement as to what to do unless I understand what the problem is. Because if it's the vent's not in the way. The tree is not in the vent either, and either is the lilac bush. So none of those present a problem from me building a sidewalk.
It's the curb appeal. You're gonna
Okay,
destroy
so now it's the curb
It's all of
appeal.
it.
The only thing I can tell you is that we will build,
And the snow removal. How are we going to deal with that?
yeah, For me personally, the snow removal, I have no place to put the snow. The plow is gonna, when they come and wing it back,
We
it's
have
gonna
to
push
dig out the
it
vent
into
as it
the,
is every day.
it's gonna push it into the sidewalk.
Yeah, I'm not arguing with you. I'll argue the points I can argue. It's not going to hit your tree.
I
It's
can't
not,
shovel.
but it's true. The snow shelf for your particular parcel will be very small, and will snow from the plow maybe reach the sidewalk? Absolutely. I'm not arguing with you.
But I gotta keep my sidewalk clear,
Yes.
your sidewalk clear, and
And the driveway, too.
in the driveway. I have no place to put the snow.
I don't know what to tell you there. I mean,
Can I blow it back in the road?
you can, and it's a violation, but no. I mean, there will be a small snow shelf between the road and your sidewalk. We have some sidewalks that are directly adjacent to the road. Downer Street has no snow shelf. So Downer Street sidewalks are curb sidewalk property. Those property owners are responsible for clearing those sidewalks.
But I have no place to put it. I mean, I understand I'm responsible for it, but the logistics of that is, where do you put it? There's no place.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's my job to find where to put your snow. I mean, if you're saying it is, I could definitely find a spot. I mean, I looked at your yard. There's place to put snow in your yard. Is it easy? No. I mean, can
Have you
you?
seen it in the wintertime with the snowbank up to this?
No, but I've seen plenty of snowbanks, and I've been to your house, so I can envision what the snow looks like, and I can envision where I would put it if I
I
needed
mean, the
to.
snow gets so
So-
high on the east side of the driveway, it gets so high that I can barely blow it up on top of it.
Yeah. I mean,
It's that, because that's the only place we have to put it, and now you're gonna put
Yeah.
a
And it
4-foot
creates
wall.
a hazard trying to pull out of your driveway, not being able to see around that snowbank.
snow removal from private property is the responsibility of property owners. I mean,
But you're creating more of a problem for us by putting
We
a
already have a
sidewalk in.
problem, and this is gonna increase the problem to the point where
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with it.
it probably will. I'm not denying that. I mean, you're going to have more snow to remove. You got to remove the snow from a portion of your yard, which you don't today. Today it's yard. Sometime in the
shallow
future,
yard.
it'll be, well, that's why we do have code requirements for the depth of yards, and,
We didn't build the house.
yeah, I know, but that's one of the reasons why we have codes, and that's why we often, as Bob knows, we argue with property owners when they want to get a variance from code, because it creates problems that are almost impossible to imagine. So, yeah, 38 years ago, you bought a house that was existing non-conforming, so nobody said anything, but here's one of the problems with building a house that doesn't have the required depth from the street. It's either here nor there, because it's long since existing. But as far as building a sidewalk and as far as having the sidewalk program, I'll be very honest. Your argument is no different than what we've heard from many people. I mean, you can tell the board, and if they tell me not to build a sidewalk through your property, I won't build it.
Do that?
But if the answer is, can I build a sidewalk through your property? And avoid
sure you can.
avoid your trees, build it over these stumps that are there? Absolutely. I can
I'm sure
I can
you
build a
can.
sidewalk to your second floor if you wanted me to, so,
My front yard
I
is going
mean,
to have my nice walk and then a strip of concrete with very little
Yep.
grass.
no. And the one thing that I will say is, as far as curb appeal and aesthetics, is that whether you like a sidewalk or not, you might not, but we construct very nice-looking sidewalks. They're window pane framed, they have a very nice joint, they're broom finish. When you get done,
It's still concrete.
yeah. It's no different than saying your house is sided and it's just siding. You have good-looking siding and you could have poor siding. Ours look very nice. We've been complimented for years from property owners for the work that we do. So if I'm told to build a sidewalk, the point is that it will look as nice as any sidewalk will look. And maybe you don't like sidewalks, but as far as the curb appeal, generally, curb appeal is enhanced by a sidewalk in an urban setting. Most communities, most communities that don't age well, and I've told Dick this numerous times, a perfect example is Bayberry in Liverpool. That was a development that was one of the early Central New York subdivisions. It was built when Electronics Park was constructed, and it's aged out, and it looks very tired. It's a neighborhood that looks bad, and I'll tell you what it's missing: curbs, sidewalks, and street trees. Our neighborhoods, North Street, looks beautiful after many, many years, and the advantage is primarily that doesn't have curbs, as gutters, but street trees and sidewalks. They allow a neighborhood to age very gracefully. Neighborhoods that don't have curbing, don't have street trees, and don't have sidewalks, as they age, they generally don't look as nice. That's not just me, that is my personal opinion, but you could look in.
Telling me that my house doesn't look nice, that it's aged?
I'm not saying that. No, I didn't say that. I certainly didn't say anything about that. What I'm saying is that when a neighborhood ages, there are some things that it reflects its age, and there are ways in which to enhance that. And generally, in urban planning, one of the ways to do that is to have sidewalks through urban areas, and certainly the village of Baldwinsville is an urban area.
Well, it's
So-
going to make it a very difficult situation to keep those areas clear.
I don't disagree.
We've done, what is this, probably about 90% of the village is done, 95%? And then every year, we've done a segment
Yeah.
of the village, and every year, somebody has the same type of
Yeah.
situation that you have. I don't want a sidewalk. I don't want people close to my house. Almost every time, those people, when you go back and talk to them, will tell you, is much nicer than I ever anticipated. Now I walk on it, because now I have a sidewalk where I never had one before. You know, particularly older people who have little dogs that they can walk, and now they don't have to walk in the road. I was not on the board when this started, but the goal was to make the entire village of Baldwinsville walkable and finish sidewalks where they weren't finished, repair sidewalks that were in bad shape, and that's what we've done. I would guess, we have a member of the county planning group back here, and I would guess that he would tell you that sidewalks are the in thing as far as in a community, as far as getting people from
Well, I
point A to point B.
I agree with that, but thanks for hearing us, and the rest of the neighborhood's here too.
Okay, thank you for coming in. Speaking of our county representative, Dan?
There's other citizens that may want to.
Somebody else want to come up? I thought you were speaking for the neighborhood.
No.
Okay.
I'm Bill Becker, and my wife and I live at 53 Mildred Ave. And we're a little bit concerned about the proposal to build sidewalks around the village. We do agree that there are some streets where sidewalks do contribute to safety, but we think that should be considered on an individual street basis and not just a blanket proposal. Our home is over 60 years old, and it does not have a sidewalk. It never had one. Yeah, there is a sidewalk running on the north side of Mildred. It runs the entire length of the street, and there's one on the south side that runs about 75% of the length of Mildred. But anybody wishing to use a sidewalk can just cross over to the north side.
There's a gentleman that walks down the street on regular occasion, and I asked him if he, why he was walking in the road specifically, since we've received the letter, and he said that he prefers walking in the road. And I said that, you know, there are sidewalks for safety, and he said, but this is a quiet street, and he prefers it. And so, like Bill said, that it's over 60, the house is over 60 years old, or approximately 60 years old, and it has not been an issue. And when there's 7 houses that don't have the sidewalk, and I believe pretty much all of them are against having the sidewalk put in for various reasons, from where do you put the snow, and that being on the corner, we receive, when that truck comes, when that plow comes around the corner, he buries us. I mean, by the time he gets down 3 or 4 houses, it's a lot less, but it's all the heavy ice, hard packed snow, and there was one day that Bill was going out to work, and we had it all cleared out, and we asked the driver just to wait till he was half in the car, to wait till we turned, till he pulled out. And
I was in the car, almost ready to back up when he came by. I had just finished clearing the driveway.
And he said no and just buried us in again. He was an hour and a half late for work. And then to add on now a sidewalk that's the length, and then the letter said that they're going to be 5 feet wide, and the rest of Mildred Ave is 4 feet wide, so why would we go to 5 feet wide when everything else, and you talk about something looking beautiful, you look at one end and you're 4 feet, and then you go to 5 feet, that just doesn't make any sense either. But children play in the street, and that's one of the beauties of our neighborhood. It's a quiet street, and I'm sure there's people that don't enjoy it, but it is the charm of our street, and they don't use the sidewalk. I mean, you do see people use the sidewalk on the other side occasionally, but for the most part, when children go to the buses, they walk across the street. They're not going to go up the street, cross over, and come back down to catch a bus. The older kids walk in the middle of the road to go up to the bus. And I know that the mayor had said that this decision was made about 10 years ago, 8 to 10 years ago, and we're asking that since the mayor and trustees voted on it, that we ask again that each of you please reconsider, and you have the authority and the capability of changing that based on an individual basis. And we hope that you would definitely look into that and listen to the residents of the street, but also you are the ones in authority. And I know the engineer has all his ideas, but he is not in the authority to make the final decision, so we ask you to please consider it. Thank you.
Very good.
We don't consider the lack of a sidewalk a safety issue. Our home has existed for 61 years, and we're not aware of any safety issues that have come up because our property does not have a sidewalk. If there is, we're not aware of it.
And I haven't heard any statistics about neighborhoods deteriorating because they don't have a sidewalk. Westvale doesn't have sidewalks, and most parts of Westvale are very appealing, and even Bayberry, I haven't been through there in a couple of years, but when I had, it did not seem like it had deteriorated because of lack of a sidewalk. And so I don't know that there's any specific numbers of proof for that, but I'm not saying that he's wrong, but that you're wrong, but I haven't seen it's your opinion or it's
No, there's plenty of studies that talk about urban planning and talk about how neighborhoods age and how you try to preserve the curb appeal and the property values of homes in a neighborhood. And study after study talks about the value of various elements, and sidewalks is generally one of those ones that is identified as assisting to preserve property values.
Why is this an issue now? Why had it sometime over the last 61 years?
It has been, to be quite honest. I spoke with Mr. Bitts, who wrote the book on the Baldwinsville history, and he made a point of telling me that in his reviews for writing that book, he looked at Lysander Van Buren and Village of Baldwinsville minutes of their board meetings, and he said almost like clockwork, about every 10 years the issue of sidewalks would come up in the village. And he said there was never a political will or a mechanism in which to combat the issue of sidewalks. He said it would come up and it would be a matter of the board minutes meeting for 2 or 3 meetings and then would just dissolve. And I think a number of years ago, I wasn't employed with the village, but I was a consultant to the village. There was a discussion with a few board members who developed this mechanism of assisting the homeowners in the cost associated with replacing and constructing new sidewalks. And that was kind of the driving element to pursue a program for sidewalk construction and replacement in the village, because I'll be very honest with you, I'm aware of what the city of Syracuse does, what many other communities and villages in Onondaga County do, and I'm very proud of the program. I had nothing to do with it, but there's no better program.
It's like, like I think I mentioned to the mayor in a letter that the expansion out to Harbor Heights and the possibility of doing them out to Aspen Springs, where it definitely connects, where there are no sidewalks. on either side, that then it's a possibility that it might be beneficial to an area. But on the outskirts of the village where it's not an issue, but again, I'm just want to direct back to the mayor and to the trustees to please listen and be open-minded and consider, because you are the ones that hold the decision, so.
We will take that into account. We will wait for you.
Another concern to us that may or may not be germane to the issue is the fact that about 3 months ago, we got a notice from the village that our property had been assessed $10,000 more, and now we're being asked to buy a sidewalk for over $2,500. And I can't call my pension provider and ask him to send me an extra $2,500. I wish I could.
Well, thank you for coming in. Appreciate you taking.
Thank you for your time.
That's it? Okay. We'll move on to Dan Quiznowski. Your car must just come here automatically. I've been here a lot lately.
Yeah, I know, right? It was just yesterday, wasn't it? I know, yeah. We're all blending together. It's grant season, so.
Yeah, I bet.
And that's what I'm here to talk about. I don't know if you had a chance to discuss anything with anybody ahead of time, but I'm going to give you the short pitch, and then you can ask questions. That's usually the way I go, instead of giving you some big, long presentation about waterfront revitalization. I'm the Director of Planning for the Syracuse-Onondaga County Planning Agency, and I've been in that position since about September last year. And I was a town planner, and I was also the chair of the planning board in the Village of Marcellus for many years. And I had gone out and reached out to every community in the county and sat down and met with at least the mayor and the town supervisor, if not other folks that wanted to come. And so I met with Dick, and I met with Joe Saraceni and with Claude. And one of the things that came up in every meeting that I had was the river, the Seneca River, the Oswego River. And Joe Saraceni really wanted to do a local waterfront revitalization program grant. And Dick did as well. And you guys have a really nice downtown plan that EDR did a while ago. And the idea is to go through that planning process through this local waterfront revitalization program with all 3 communities. So that's the grant that we'd like to write for the communities, and Lysander would be the administrative office for that grant. So what the program is again, it's called the Local Waterfront Revitalization Program through the Department of State. There's 3 grants in the county right now that I know of. There's the Lakefront, which is in the city near Destiny, that whole inner harbor area. There's one in DeWitt along the Erie Canal in the town of DeWitt, and then the town of Clay has one for the Oneida River up on the north. So I honestly can't believe that you guys don't already have one. To be honest with you, have such a magnificent water body, and with the locks and with the barge canal and all the things that we talked about yesterday morning and that I keep hearing about, and Paper Mill Island, the work that you guys have already done is such a great example of what you can do with a waterfront. And there's still more opportunity. And the nice thing about this program is that it's not just along the water. You can go inland, probably about 3 to 5 miles, if not more, if you need to. And you can really look at land uses, you can look at recreation, you can look at opportunity for parks. The best part about this whole program, so you do the phase 1 grant, the phase 1 plan, and that's kind of like a high-flying plan. You identify all the things you kind of want to do in there, all the initiatives that you already have, all the things that you think you'd like to do, the infrastructure that you have, the capital projects you might want to do. And then the nice thing about this program is that you follow that up and there's actual capital funding for many years to come, so that when you want to actually do something, no matter what it is, it might be another plan, it might be a physical project, a capital project, there's funding from the state to actually follow through on that. And being on the barge canal, there's additional dollars that you might be able to tap, if you have a plan. I think the other great benefit of this program is that the 3 communities working together and focusing on the river, it's kind of like a neutral body, right, in the community that really enables you to talk about something that everybody loves and everybody wants to protect and wants to enjoy and wants to be out on their boat and wants to walk along the creek or whatever it is, or have their camp on it or their house. So it's kind of a common area for the 3 communities to really talk. There's a requirement for an advisory council to formulate the plan, and then as you move forward with projects, you have to talk to each other and kind of coordinate on what's coming up next and be strategic about it. I think that's one of the great benefits is that you get 3 communities along this river and really talking about something that everybody can agree on, is a great thing for their community and that they'd like to do more with. So that's kind of the short pitch, and I'm sure that you probably have some questions, but the idea is grants are due next week on Friday, and Megan and I are so looking forward to writing another grant, but we would love to do this one. I think this is super important. The county executive, loves the idea, and we've got like 2 or 3 other communities that are really interested in doing the same thing, but you guys are first. I really think that your project is that significant, and the fact that I'm here and that I was just a Sander and I'm going to Van Buren on Monday and they're having a special meeting about it really shows me that there's definitely interest up here in doing this and that you see the benefit that this could have for your community. So
your deadline's next week?
yeah.
And so what would you need from us?
Well, did you get the resolution?
Pardon me?
Did you get the resolution, the email?
I did not.
You didn't? Okay.
Not on our agenda, that's why.
Lysander's going to put the initial bill. It's a reimbursement thing, quickly.
They're gonna get that through that. How are they gonna get through that, the town Lysander, without our... Tell me how you do that.
Does this piggyback on the EDR report? Is that what I'm hearing?
What's that?
Does this piggyback on the EDR
Kinda.
report?
What it does is establishes a planning situation for down the road, and anything that would be done along the water would have to fit into that picture of what we've established as our plan.
Okay, but this would replace the EDR plan or supplement it?
Supplement.
Because that's kind of out of date, and I'm not sure it really reflects what our vision is at this stage of the game. The Village Square, Lock Street, there are areas that we've already worked on that don't necessarily conform with the EDR plan. So I think we would need to look at it and make sure that it's still in line with our goals. I haven't looked at it. I may have a copy of it here, but I haven't looked at it in a long time.
Yeah, this would be a supplement to it. Like I came up with some proposals, just as discussion. We didn't even get to them because this is more about getting involved in the program.
Well, when the grant is actually submitted, do you have to have all of that laid out? It's a kind of a tight time frame.
I think the thing for next week is strictly to get
The foundation,
registered
yeah,
into
okay.
this program.
Then you might have time to put some work into it.
They were saying the other day it would probably be June before we knew that we'd get the letter saying you are officially a part of the LWRP for this area. And then we could turn around and propose specific things, of which I already had some ready. Steve and I had talked. Be nice to put permanent restroom over by the visitor center, maybe one down at the square. There's been talk of the trail along the cemetery out to Gentry Road, so that our trail system would be expanded. Things like that, and they're certainly open to anybody coming up with suggestions of what you'd love to see done in that area. But those things don't get included in this initial grant is just to get us labeled an LWRP community.
But to Mark's point, if people are gonna keep coming back to
When
EDR,
when these funds come in, who controls the disbursement of the funds? Do you anticipate a municipal cooperation agreement relative to the?
Yes.
Okay, so that it's not going to be a situation where lead municipality makes determinations relative to the ultimate disbursement of the funds. It would have to be consensus.
Right, that's right. Yep, so the grant is $150,000 from the state, and the match would be $37,500. And the way we've written it was that would all be in kind. So you have to have an advisory committee to oversee the plan, right? And you can structure that, and Megan and I will help you kind of put that together between the 3 communities. And all the time of those volunteers on that committee counts towards the match, and then all the time of Megan and I would count towards the match as well at SACPA and any mapping that we do for the project. So we can definitely cover that 37.5 through in-kind services, for sure. So that leaves a $150,000 contract with a consultant to prepare the plan, which we would help work with the 3 municipalities to develop a work plan and a scope, and then following Lysander's procurement process, and then you would, through that agreement, you would decide how you're going to pick out the consultant. So you'd do like an RFQ or an RFP process, and then you'd interview, and then you'd all decide, okay, let's go with these guys.
Basically, just for the plan,
Yeah.
the actual cost of the improvements that are pursuant to the plan would be up to each individual municipality. And
You
there'd
can
be no
apply on
grant-
your own after that
There
point.
would be no
for sure.
grant money available for that.
There would be for capital improvements afterward. Once the plan is in place, you can, so the village doesn't have to rely on the towns to apply for a grant. Now, it's better if you coordinate with them,
Right, that's what I'm saying. If you-
because even the reason that Lysander is going to be the administrative office for this grant is because we're sponsoring a grant for regional planning through the same program, and we didn't want to compete with ourselves. So it worked out, because the original idea was that the county would just do it on behalf of the towns and the village, and you wouldn't have to worry about that as much. But I think it's actually better this way if one of the towns does it, and then and also the county doesn't compete with itself by submitting 2 applications.
No, but the determination, once the grant money comes in, as to disbursement, won't be solely up to the town of Lysander.
No, that's right. Yeah, through your agreement, sure.
Which is why it's important to have an agreement.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And we have between, the grants will probably be announced in about December, and then it'll be another 6 weeks. So once it's announced, then we can start to get that together and pull together an agreement, how you guys are going to operate together, and put the advisory committee together. And we'll help you, like I said, with the scope of work and kind of getting you through that procuring a consultant process. And then, supporting the project as we can as we go along.
Dan, I didn't think of it yesterday when we met, but the 44 protocols,
Yes.
are those protocols written for each municipality? Oh, they are. So
Yep.
individual protocols for Baldwinsville, Lysander, and Van Buren.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And then it gets a little, it's an interesting program, because Department of State, and it changes all the time, but last I knew, the Department of State would like the village and the towns to adopt that plan. But the fact is, once it's created, you don't necessarily have to, but you can still apply through that plan for phase 2 funding, which is so it's not really required, but they would like you to do it. They'd like you to kind of go all in and keep going with it and really commit to it. But if you don't, it's not like you can't apply for capital funds and get them. The other nice thing is, once you have that plan, and like Dick submitted some projects that he thought would be great in there, and I heard talking about the EDR plan and updating that. I think that's a great idea too. There's other funding. I mean, you can use this plan as a justification for. Canal Corp has funding available right now for capital projects along the Barge Canal. So it can set you up. It's not the only program that you have to go through, and you can use that plan to justify other projects that you want to do, or even other planning projects like that. The EDR plan that you have is really more of a phase 2 project than a phase 1. It's detailed enough. So
And just so the board is aware, when I first came 7 years ago, I forget the project now, but we did submit a grant application for something. I can't remember, Mark, if you remember what it was, and we were denied, the application was denied because it required an LWRP to even qualify for the grant, required this. That's when we tried to use the EDR report, the plan developed by EDR, saying that was an LWRP, and they said, no, it's not. And Joe was mayor, and Joe referenced that had been used once before as an LWRP on a grant application, and the response was, yes. I think we cited it as being equivalent to, for that grant application, but not saying that it took the place of one, and for this grant application, it was required. So I guess my point is, there are some programs out there that are only available to those communities that have LWRPs.
And not everybody, like not all water bodies are eligible. So first you have to get it listed. Okay. So for example, in the village of Skinny Atlas Lake is on the list, but Skinny Atlas Creek isn't. I live in Marcellus, 9 Mile Creek isn't on the list, so we couldn't do it. But we could, petition to get it listed. And it's not that hard to do, but, you guys are in a fortunate position that
Well, is the Seneca River listed?
State Barge Canal is.
Okay.
So that's what we're going with. And it works, and they're good with
Scope
that.
of this, with the two towns, is it from Cross Lake to Phoenix?
Cross Lake to Phoenix, yeah, that's right. And that's a good move because it's not such a huge area that's like, oh, it's too vague, but it's narrow enough, but you might as well do the whole thing and get it all in the phase one, so that way you're not cutting yourself off,
And as they said, excuse me, it gives us more clout when we have the village and two towns
Oh, absolutely, yeah,
together.
that's a huge thing.
The state likes that kind of stuff, so. And fortunately, looking in the discussion, Claude and Joe didn't have a ton of things outside the village. But, as Joe, the discussion came up about the money and who should pay, and Joe pointed out that people in the village should not have to pay separate because they're already paying in the two towns, whichever town they live in. So the projects that we do in the village would be considered somewhat almost like town of Lysander projects or town of Van Buren projects. So, everything we do will be at least double barrel, which is nice.
Yeah.
So, Steve and I were talking, and I just tried to see if there was a downside. Couldn't really.
The fact that someone else will write the application?
Yes.
To me,
Well, believe me, I guess but the fact that if we can get 3 communities to really commit to this, that makes it worthwhile for us. I think it's going to be a great project, and it's totally worth our time in county planning, because this isn't just, it's important to the county, but I really see this as more of a region-wide project. You guys affect a lot of people, even up in Oswego County and Cuyahoga County, and of course all the people, the loopers and boating on the Barge Canal. I think this is super important for the region as a whole.
So what is the status with the two towns? Did you meet with the town of Lysander earlier
I
tonight?
met with the town of Lysander earlier, and they seemed to be along the same lines in
Did they
favor.
support the resolution? Was that approved?
I had to leave,
Okay.
but he was going to let me know. It seemed like it was going in that direction. And then I'm meeting with Van Buren on Monday. They're holding a special meeting just for
They
this.
had their meeting already
Okay.
this week.
All right.
There wouldn't be another one until August.
Right.
So Claude, to his credit, was able to get his board together for Monday. And so, I didn't have much time to read the resolution, but it looked pretty straightforward. Does anybody have any questions?
It's really that you support the application. Even if it's awarded and one of the towns or villages decides not to do it, then it's just, until you sign the contract, it's not really that binding. But it does show a lot, if you can show a resolution from each town in the village.
So I'll put this down on the agenda under new business. We'll bring this up shortly.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan.
Hey.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your interest in our village.
Oh, yeah.
That's aye.
Item I.
Do you want to pass that down to Bob so he can
Yeah,
read
where's-
it and see if he's got any?
Okay. Now, we'll get back on straight and narrow here. We'll go to our trustees' comments. Andy?
All set, just agenda, please.
Mike?
The agenda's good, thanks.
Meg?
Just the agenda.
Bruce?
I'm going to get on a soapbox for a minute.
Go ahead. You're good at it.
For the end of June, beginning of July, and now it's starting again, I don't think I've seen more yard waste put out into the street in my lifetime.
You mean the brush?
Yard waste, brush,
Trees?
people's irises, whatever they are, anything they get out of their
No, I just
backyard.
meant not like home stuff.
No, I'm talking about yard waste. It's the same houses every 2 weeks. They can't put the stuff in their front yard. They can't put it in their driveway, and apparently been able to figure out how to maneuver around it. I don't know why. But it's unsightly. I've watched cars, cyclists, and pedestrians where there are no sidewalks have to go out into traffic to go around brush piles that have no place on a village street. I don't know how to discourage this. I would cause trouble if I were the DPW superintendent, because I probably would put a plow on a pickup truck and relocate all the stuff.
Don't give him any ideas.
It's just,
authorization.
it's just irritating to me that constantly people haul their debris, their yard waste, to put it in the street. It doesn't belong there. That's all I have to say, other than I'm
Well, the hard part is
sticking to the
you
agenda.
would like to say, well, we just won't pick it up, but then it's going to be there for 2 more weeks.
Well, hey, the first full week in July was the second week of July. So maybe there was extra stuff. The village crews came around, picked stuff up. I could go to some of the regular offenders. Within 24 hours, there's bags of stuff in the street. Now, you drive by today, they're not putting their trash cans in the street. Apparently, they figured out not to do that. But their debris goes in the street.
Can we have a, and I know it would be painstaking, can we have the crew have a form letter that they could stick in the door and say,
It's not.
your brush is in violation?
We have a letter that we do now when we find contents that are in violation, but to do that would slow us up tremendously. I would actually,
Write a list.
I would probably prefer to just enroll Greg for the day and have him go in front of the crew and drop that letter off to every home where it's in. We tell people who call, put it on the curb, we will rake it from the curb into the street and pick it up. And for those who are watching today, don't think that you're doing us any favor by putting it in the street. We have the capabilities, we have the equipment to easily pull it from the curb line into the street and then pick it up. So all of the yard waste can easily be left on the curb and we can get it. It's not as if it's a hindrance to us to bring it from the curb to the street.
And I'm sure the complaint is our grass dies
It does.
where that stuff sits. But come check my front yard, I got a dead spot at the road. I'm not being a hero. I mean, that's a sacrifice you make.
Yeah. And if people want to, we do encourage this only in the sense that when I talk to people, we really like the idea of communities, locations. So if 2 or 3 homes want to take one spot and do that, certainly that means a larger pile for us, but only one stop. We have the equipment that if it's 3 bags of grass or if it's 9, it doesn't make a difference. Our piece of equipment handles it equally as well.
That your crew will
ones do.
probably merge those 12 bags anyway before they pick
They do, before we pick it up. So if they're at one location, that would help. We certainly don't, ask people to coordinate that, but we do say that if you were to coordinate that in your neighborhood, we would appreciate it. Some people do, and neighbors will take and put it at one location on their adjoining property line. The other thing is, I think there is something in the code that talks about, like our garbage, your yard waste is not supposed to be put out until 24 hours before the pickup date. Now, we don't enforce that. I don't think Greg does either. We're generally pretty lenient in that. But if you're worried about your yard, the grass dying, don't put it out until Sunday night. We come around on Mondays, and sometimes we don't get through the entire village in a day. We're out Tuesday and even sometimes on Wednesday picking up. But if you put it out on Sunday, we'll collect it as quickly as we can. And if you're confused as what the date is, it is in our newsletter, which is on the website, but generally it is the first and third full week of the month. And the only month that's confusing of that is 4th of July. That's not considered a full week. And Labor Day. Because we're not into the every week schedule at that point. But beyond that, it's the first and third week of the month, and if there's some element of that that's confusing, our schedule is in the newsletter. So you can print that out, tape it to your refrigerator so that you have it, and that'll be a reminder to you as to when we're going to be out to pick up.
Or if in doubt, call DPW.
And many people do. Many people call to ask, is this a brush collection week? And believe me, it's a quick phone call for us to just say, no, it's not, it's next week, or yes, it is, they'll be out. So feel free to call. Again, it's not something that is a hindrance to us to get that phone call.
Very good.
And as far as Greg, taking the responsibility of the notices or whatever, I mean, it doesn't even have to be specifically on brush pickup day. He can, anytime he goes by any property and sees brush out in the street, he can
Yeah.
make note of it and send a notice or pull over and slip a note in the door or whatever.
It is particularly frustrating on streets without sidewalks, because I know in my neighborhood, I've seen times where there's a pile on one side, and a little bit down, there's a pile on the other, and you have cars coming from both directions, and kids walking from the school bus, and, I mean, I just hold my breath, that, because people do not want to wait. They're trying to get around there in a hurry, and you got kids walking who aren't paying attention, and that's a great point. Thank you for bringing it up. Anything else?
No, I'll stick to the agenda.
Yeah. Ruth?
I'll stick to the agenda, thanks.
Mark?
I need to request an executive session to update the board on the status of a village contract negotiation.
All right, that'll be item J.
And other than that, the agenda will be good. Thank you.
All right.
Mayor, I forgot to mention that we're going to cancel the August public safety committee meeting as well.
Make sure you say it loud so they know it.
The scheduled August public safety committee meeting is canceled due to some vacation time.
How you two worked the Margarita Fest? How'd that go?
It was incredible. It was awesome.
How many people you think you had?
We know exactly how many we had.
500.
500? 502.
Yeah.
502. This is the first year that we ever completely sold out. Keep that in mind for next year, because the tickets were gone by about 4:15. We had no issues, as far as I know, with police. We saw some police presence, but no issues. And the local establishments were great, as far as no issues. Everybody was under control, and the volunteer center did real well.
Good.
I think the biggest issue was at the candy shop, in that with the crowd and the amount of space she had, people were propping the door open, which meant that the candy was melting because all of her air conditioning was going out the door. So she had to have her father come and be a bouncer so that the door could remain shut. And
Oh, good. That's
but
a nice problem.
people were lined up outside waiting to get in, and they had people coming out.
Yeah,
giving them
July
treats.
12th, 2020 is next year.
They want to buy your tickets now.
Exactly.
All right, I've got a couple things. Got word today that the music in the parks, which was going to be at the Square, Mercer Park, and out on the island this weekend, on Saturday actually, has been canceled because of the heat warnings. They're talking about 110-degree heat factor, so they figured it wasn't smart to have people out walking the streets, standing in the sun, not hottest part of the day. A year ago, we didn't have any fireworks on the 4th of July or around the 4th of July. This year, we had it on the 3rd with a concert. It was great. I heard nothing but good things from people, that the concert was good. A couple local bands that were both very good. The fireworks was one of the best I've seen around here. Nice show. Hats off to Chuck. And I sent him an email that night saying, we asked you to come through, and you did. Thank you. So,
And I heard that Under the Gun, which was the showcase band, that was actually their last concert ever. So we got the
oh wow.
final concert of theirs. I think their lead singer is having some health issues, so he's moving to Florida. So that was their final show. So I know they've been around for a long time.
Yeah, I'll tell you that
So.
that waterfront was packed with boats. I haven't seen that many boats in a long time. They were 3 and 4 deep along the wall, and then out in the middle, people had thrown anchors in.
And it was early, too. I mean, I drove by early, like 4 or 5 o'clock,
Oh, yeah.
and they were starting to get that deep.
The interesting thing is the fireworks ended at like 10:30, and by about 20 to 11, there was no boats. So they started up and they were gone as soon as the event was over.
Yeah.
So,
That it was one complaint I heard was that the fireworks started so late,
Yeah.
which I don't think it was ever publicized what time it would,
No, and
it would start. So I think in the
Chief said
past, when it's,
on the contract, it said 10:15.
oh, okay. Well,
But
it
they-
wasn't
they didn't publicize
publicized
that,
anywhere
yeah.
when it would be held. So I think some people with younger children were anxious to have them started and go. So maybe the one comment would be to actually publicize what time
Yeah.
the fireworks would be going off, so people can plan.
This past weekend, we had 2 concerts on the island. We didn't hear any issues with that. I mean, some people were talking about the Saturday one, and a couple of them said it was loud, but the music was great, and it's nice to see people in the village. And so, and there was no negative comments, which I think is nice.
He commented he had very low attendance on that one for the type of event he likes to have, but
And the people were really
just
praising the music, so it must be Stephen Marley is very good, and obviously nobody came. That's too bad. We did get a lot of nice feedback on Facebook for the connector sidewalks up on Route 48 from MacArthur and Artillery, that Steve decided that we would put them in. Apparently, we cleared the snow some of the time to let the kids cross from those streets over to our sidewalk. Well, this winter, the ground didn't freeze very well, and Paulie was afraid to destroy that whole area with his tires and maybe get stuck because the ground was soft. So we included those in our project this summer, and some people like our sidewalks.
They lead to somewhere. They lead to somewhere.
Yeah. I saw that the Taste of Baldwinsville, which is set for September 28th, has gotten quite a few sponsors, and they're still looking for more. So if you're interested, it's Angry Garlic and Pizza Man who are the driving forces behind this. If you're interested in sponsoring and making it a real big event, get a hold of somebody there. I have a question of all of you. I went to a press conference the other day on Route 81 with mayors and supervisors. And the thrust of the discussion is that the decision that was made, which may be the only decision that works, but was only made with whatever worked for the city. Steve and I were talking about this, and I said, this isn't a thoroughfare that the federal government said, this doesn't work and we got to get rid of it. It's a city of Syracuse saying it's not working for us, we'd like to change it. And so they've gotten some agreement to do that. It was brought up by Mark Vaneski, who's the Cicero supervisor. He asked the question of one of the designers, or somebody from the DOT, did you talk to the people in the town of Salina and how it's going to affect them? Because they have thrived for years on the fact that Route 81 exits right there on the 7th North Street. They have a truck stop, several motels, and the comment was, no, we didn't talk to them. Did you talk to the emergency service people who might be affected? Yeah, they're all on board. He said, I talked to 5 fire departments that have any impact in Cicero, and all of them said no one has ever talked to them about how a change in the flow of 81 and so on will impact them. So what about Destiny? Have you thought about what, that was the big thing for years with people coming down from Canada, getting right off at Destiny, shopping and going home. If that may change when the emphasis is on pushing people on the 481. So he said, you talked to what it will do to Destiny. No, we didn't talk to them. Have you talked to the city about what the loss of income at Destiny will do to their tax base? No, we hadn't talked to them. So the feeling is that, again, this community grid idea may be the only solution that they can come up with. But the concern is that it didn't really get fully vetted, that there are a lot of questions left to be answered. I would like to write a letter just to say we would like a more in-depth look at how the suburbs are affected by the decisions with Route 81. I'm not gonna get any discussion, just maybe a one-paragraph letter that I would send. If you guys would say you have no problem with doing that, I will do it. If you think I shouldn't do it, I won't do it. But I'm not gonna get involved with details. I just think that they should put more into seeing how the suburbs will be affected. Lafayette supervisor said a lot more trucks will now get off at Lafayette and head west on Route 20. I don't know how many of you have ever been on Route 20 from Lafayette to Skaneateles. That's not exactly straight road, and there's a lot of hills and dips and curves, and you're talking about trucks coming from New York City full of garbage heading to Seneca Meadows, and there is some concern about safety on that road, and that apparently was not considered either. So I will, with the nods that I'm getting, I'm just going to write a letter and say that I support the desire to see a more in-depth look at how the suburbs will be affected by what happens with Route 81.
If you would, I don't know if you've ever spoken to the Brownsville Ambulance Corps, but I'd be interested in their opinion on how that would affect their ability to get anybody that's under an emergency situation into the hospitals up near Syracuse University.
It's kind of the scary part of the whole thing is they're talking about this thing being done in 2030. I mean, where will we all be in 2030? I mean, you know, we may be pushing up daisies or something at that point. It's just like they've spent $4 million plus to study, and it looks like they haven't done all the studying.
I wonder what it would be like just getting to the dome for events.
Well, apparently that's not a huge concern. I mean,
My understanding is most of the study is based on the economic, the driver of how much is it going to cost for each alternative, not necessarily what the ancillary impacts are. So I'd be interested in more of the impacts to the suburbs as well.
John Kanko had told us that back at a meeting, that was back in the first of the year time, that money is not really an object. The federal government will provide the money. It's there. So that if you think something is too expensive, it really isn't as far as the feds are concerned. So, and I understand that there's...
They eliminated the tunnel option because it was too expensive,
Right.
so...
I mean, there are concerns that, you know, I don't know all the details about, I mean, you know, but I would like to know that people from Baldwinsville who work in the city would feel like their concerns are addressed. Or, you know, well, we've heard enough interest, we're gonna have to build a connector road, or we're gonna have to, whatever it might be. That's what they make their money doing. So, all right, enough of that one. I think that's all I have. Next up, we go to department heads. Our attorney, Bob?
Just to let everybody know, I've given the mayor documents to sign Legacy Drive dedication, which was approved by the board, is going to be taking place, and I've been given the deeds and the other documents. So once those get signed tonight, I'll get those in, and then that road will be dedicated officially. Other than that, I'll just stick with the agenda.
Very good. We'll talk to our clerk treasurer and code officer. Anna?
Well, the code officer hasn't given me any information to relay, and neither has the village clerk. And from myself, I'm still behind on the financials. You do have April's, and I'm frantically working on trying to get caught up, hopefully by the next meeting for all of you. Other than that, I'm all set.
Very good. Move across the other side. Senior Center, Ruth?
Just to let the board know that this week we did begin distribution of the Farmers Market Coupon Program, which comes through the Office for Aging, and we've distributed almost all of what they gave to us. That's $20 worth of vouchers that people can use at the markets with vendors that have, you know, signed on to be a part of that program. So that was a good success, and like I said, they're almost all distributed. I just came from the classic car cruising across the street at Baldwin Canal, where we benefit from the 50/50, and that reminds me to mention that our own car show is coming up on August 5th. That's a Monday night from 5 to 8 p.m. And if it gets rained out, which we hope it doesn't, it would be the following Monday, August 12th, the same time. And also want to let the seniors know that on Wednesday, August 21st, is the summer picnic from the local Rotary, and you do need to make a reservation for that by August 16th. So that is happening on Wednesday, August 21st, at the Senior Center from 4 to 5:30. It's a gift from the Rotary, but you do need to make your reservation by August 16th. And that's all, unless anybody has a question.
Very good.
Thank
Sounds
you.
busy.
We're busy.
And the car show, for anybody who's never gone to the car show, there's a lot of very nice cars. And very nicely cooked hot dogs. And Ed Barlow running the show over at the hot dogs. And it's a nice way on a summer night to get out.
It's a fun night.
Yep. Public Works, Steve.
Yeah, two items. One is that, not really as a village employee, but I am going to be attending Tuesday something called Reimagining the Barge Canal. It's being put on up at ESF at Gateway, and it's like an open symposium. I have an interest in listening to see what the comments are, but I thought certainly the Village of Baldwinsville would certainly be interested in knowing what the reimagining the canal might be, so I'm going to attend that.
That's Tuesday?
That's Tuesday evening, yeah. I think you said you're going to be out at the, remember I mentioned it to you once before?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to be out of town. And I would comment on the sidewalk issue is that I think we have a terrific program in the village. As I tried to mention, I'm aware of a few other municipalities' programs, not everyone in the county, but I know a few others, and I don't think anyone compares with the program that we have here in the village for the both combination of putting the responsibility of the sidewalk replacement or new construction onto the homeowner, but yet at the same time providing a manner in which to assist with the cost. I've been doing it now for 7 years, and I understand that it's a financial burden to everyone who gets a letter saying, I had no idea that I was even responsible for the sidewalk, let alone being told that I'm solely responsible to clear it, to take care of it, to maintain it, and now some of them are being asked to construct it. So I can appreciate the financial burden, but I will say that in the years that I've been here, both prior to working for the village and since, that the sidewalk program has enhanced the village substantially. We do a lot of things, and there are very few programs that we do in Public Works that impact a very large portion of the population. We build a kayak launch, and my guess is that a very small portion of the village residents actually go down, utilize, and enjoy a kayak launch, but we still invest in that. We invest in our parks, and I think probably a larger portion use the parks generally. But still, in reality, a small portion of the general public is using our parks and our trails. And I think probably the sidewalk investment impacts a larger portion of the general public, the residents in the village, than any other thing that I've been involved with, parking lots, any maintenance or new construction. So I think it's an important program. I certainly endorse it, and I believe what I said to the homeowners there, that sidewalks enhance your neighborhood. For those who say, now our curb appeal is going to be impacted, an individual might look at a sidewalk and say, I don't like the sidewalk in front of a home. I prefer just a full yard. But in general, the public looks at a nice sidewalk in front of a home, and in an urban setting, a sidewalk enhances the curb appeal of a home. So sidewalks have been a burden to me since I've been here. It's a tough program to administer, primarily because of the financial burden to the homeowners. And many people have expressed to me exactly what was expressed this evening. But I would say that it's a program that takes a lot of political will in order to get through, but yet I would have to say that it's been a successful program to date.
Very good. Thanks, Steve. Michael?
Mayor, I would just call upon the public again to please lock your car doors if you are in your home or there are cars in a parking lot. it seems as though every 3 weeks, there's a rash of whether it's in the village or recently just on the outskirts of the village where numerous vehicles are entered, items are stolen, and in almost every one of these instances, the vehicle's doors have been left unlocked, most of the time overnight. Residents can really do a tremendous job in helping to prevent crime by simply just locking their car doors. It's a very simple act, and it can really have an impact on neighborhoods that are victimized. People are terribly inconvenienced oftentimes. They've left work computers or other electronic devices in their cars, and it's a tremendous loss to them, both not only financially for the device itself, but also the work product that many people have spent countless hours inputting into those devices. So I would just ask, please be diligent, ensure that your car doors are locked if you're away from the vehicle, and that would really help to prevent crime no matter where you are, whether it's in the village or anywhere else.
There was something on Facebook the other night. Somebody said a car stopped at their house, 3 people got out, went up to the car, and apparently the woman's husband realized they were there and he flipped the lights and they took off. So my wife said, "Did you see that?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, aren't you upset?" I said, "It happens all the time." I said, "The chief is reminding people every week, every meeting, lock your doors," because there was another rash of people going through neighborhoods. I said, that's not new. This is going on all the time.
And the only other thing to echo, to add on to that story would be is if a citizen or someone saw something like that occur, to pick up the phone and call 911. We have officers working 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We could hopefully get there, maybe identify the people that are involved, and if we get a description of the individuals or the car they're driving or a plate number, it would at least give us some leads to go on, because that very night, there was a community just outside the village that a number of people had their vehicles gone into. So that data, that information might be very important to that investigation. So if someone sees something like that, obviously people are up to no good, they're trying to commit crimes, call 911 and let us know so we can get somebody out there to hopefully figure out who they are and stop them from doing it.
Thanks, Mike.
Yes, Mayor.
We'll go to pending business. Item A, motion. Can I get a motion to adopt a resolution transferring the sum of $21,000 from the village's PMI Amphitheater Maintenance Reserve Fund in order to pay for the various repair and maintenance projects to be completed in the 2019-2020 budget year?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. New business. Can I get a motion authorizing the mayor to sign the contract between Onondaga County Community Development and the Village of Baldwinsville for the Downer and Tappan Street intersection improvement projects, the amount of $36,100?
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I ask what that is, just because we're not privy in the...
We applied a year ago. Community development application included a project to improve street crossings at Tappan and Canton, Tappan and McCary, Downer and Canton, and Downer and Frawley. And they're fairly simple. Some striping, some lighting, and some signs upgrading of each of those intersections.
You had mentioned the Facebook comments. I had saw one regarding that specific corner, so that's why I was wondering what that was.
Which one do you, another one that's bad, you think, or?
No, it was that specific corner, Syracuse
Oh, okay.
and Downer Street. I'm sorry. Well, that's Tappan and Downer,
Yeah,
which run parallel to Syracuse. Okay.
yeah,
Never mind. I grew up right there, so.
yeah. Well, we identified those because they generally have the combination of fairly heavy traffic, Tappan and Downer, and we've identified them as a fairly consistent pedestrian traffic.
Yeah, that comment was specific to Tappan and Syracuse Street. That's why I was wondering.
Yeah, so then that's included. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, so we did vote on that one, right?
Yeah.
Can I get a motion to receive the bids for the roadway striping project that were taken Wednesday, July 17th, 2019?
Moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item C, can I get a motion to award the roadway striping project to Dick's Sweeping Service in the amount of $13,671 as bid on Wednesday, July 17th, 2019?
It's Dixie, but aren't we going to pull this?
I think, if someone raises this motion,
And it is seconded. I think that it should be tabled because I'm going further in the agenda, you'll see that I'm requesting, I don't have it budgeted. So what happened was we paved Ellsworth and Canton Street, and we were finding that the traffic speeds were increasing, and we thought that those streets should be lined. And in talking with Chuck and some others, I think there was a history of Canton Street being lined, Downer Street being lined, and Smoky Hollow being lined. We haven't done it since I've been here, and any lines that are existing are quite faded. Most are completely gone. So I said we would stripe those. I don't have any funding. I didn't budget for it. I'm proposing that we take the money from the highway fund, but in order to get that money, we need a resolution first to hold a public hearing. So you can either bypass this item on tonight's agenda, or if you open the agenda and have a discussion, it may be recommended that it get tabled until we get authorization that we do have a mechanism to pay for the contract before we award it.
So just table this to the next meeting? We have a,
Just don't act on it.
Just
don't
vote
act.
item D.
Skip it due to technical difficulties.
we'll hold that one. That's on hold, Steve. All right, item D, can I get a motion approving the Onondaga County Civil Service Position Duty Statement, creating an additional labor position of police sergeant?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Explanation, Mike?
Yes, this was approved during the budgeting process, but Onondaga County, they have roster spots, and you actually have to create the roster position, and there's a formal process to go through for that. So this is part of that formal process. I've sent the necessary paperwork to them. They've returned it to us. The board needs to approve it, and then we'll send this approval to them, and then the roster spot will miraculously appear on a piece of paper or a computer screen somewhere, and then we could move forward
We're
with
all happy.
Exactly.
It's part of the SRO program. Is that what this was?
No, it's not. This is creating the third sergeant's position that we talked about during our budgeting process that was approved in the budget.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Item E, can I get a motion authorizing Chief Michael Leffencheck and Lieutenant Michael Lockwood to attend the New York State Association of Chiefs of Police Annual Training Conference in Rochester, New York, from July 20th to July 25th at a cost not to exceed $2,200. This is a budgeted item.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Not quite as jazzy as going to Texas or some of the other places, Orlando or something.
It's Rochester.
Yeah. Can I get a motion for setting a public hearing to authorize the transfer of funds from the Highway Reserve Fund for striping, subject to the public hearing on August 1st, 2019?
Moved.
Second.
That meeting will be at 7:30.
Yes.
All right, so we
Did
have,
we authorize a public hearing? Did we authorize a public hearing?
Motion for setting a public hearing.
We're setting it.
so I just wanted to make sure people knew it was 7:30. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item G, discussion, possible action regarding the LWRP and a plan to regulate development along our waterfront and qualify for DOS grants.
I've reviewed the resolution and it's fine.
Okay. So we get a motion to accept that resolution?
Aye.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Discussion, possible action regarding sign-on with permit to facilitate our employee handbook at a cost of $2,500. before we get into any action. We had a meeting 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, with department heads, Mike and Steve and Mo. And the subject of the handbook came up. And they are all firmly in agreement that they can take the handbook we have now and make it read okay. But they're not in agreement that they can make it a functional vehicle for what we need to protect ourselves. You know, there's so many new regulations. You know, so we know what the sexual harassment thing is, we can stick that in as a page. But there's other things in our book that they're very uncertain about. The suggestion was that Bob could help us with this, but that's not, Bob's expertise is not employee handbooks. This is a company that's all they do, and PERMA was our compensation carrier, will pay $2,500 of the $5,000 that it costs to get the handbook taken care of. So they will come in, take our handbook, say, this stuff's meaningless, doesn't hold any water, we gotta fix this, you need to add 6, 7 other, whatever you gotta add to make this have all the things it's supposed to have, and then present us a handbook that we can stand behind and be able to face employees who say, why is that rule the way it is? Or face an attorney who says, we didn't follow your handbook. Well, here's what we got. Our handbook is exactly what we did. So my thought is that this is a good investment for us. Protects everybody. And it should be well done. I mean, that's my assumption. And it will answer a lot of the questions that the people who have been working on it don't even know the questions to ask in some cases to make sure it's updated. We've asked the county 5 times to send us theirs, got nothing. You know, and it would, if this group from the village did it, it's going to take a long time for them. It was going to take months and months and months to get it done. This group hopefully would come in and it would expedite the whole thing. So it's my recommendation that we accept this proposal and spend the $2,500 to make sure we have a good document. Thoughts?
So, have they given you a time frame for completion? Because, and the possibility, what's the possibility of cost overruns?
We haven't even talked to this company.
Okay.
We just know this is what it costs.
Well, I don't really want to commit to anything without a due date for a deliverable.
All right.
Because I don't really want to spend the money and not have a finished product in a year or something.
Okay, I can find that stuff out.
And then we'll find the money in the budget because it's not a budgeted item.
We'll find there's some spots. You know, I know it seemed like it would be nice if we could do it ourselves. It would save the money. But I felt the 3 people who were addressing me were very serious with their concerns that this was above their pay grade, so to speak. You know, I mean, some pretty serious stuff you're dealing with, and didn't want to leave the village exposed. You know, we're striping the street. Steve's not sending our guys out to do it. He's going to hire somebody who does it professionally, because they'll do it and get it done quickly. That's the hope with this group. Mo has looked into it a little bit. I mean, Mo might know the answer to that question about how long it would take them. She's on vacation, so I have not had that discussion with her. But I will find that for the next meeting, and we can put this on hold. I would like to put that as, you know, pending business, and discuss it then.
In the bigger scheme of things, thinking big picture, like in earlier committee meetings, somebody had mentioned that we hadn't revisited this employee handbook for over 10 years. So if you're projecting that this handbook could potentially have a lifespan of 10 years, it's really a $250 investment over the course of the lifetime of this handbook. It's another way I look at it.
Well, it'll be a lot easier to work and keep it updated once we get it done and we have a strong base to start with. then if the people who were working on it now can say, we ought to really fine tune this one item, you know, which makes it a whole lot simpler. So we'll put that, we'll table that to the next meeting. I put down the LWRP as an extra. I didn't remember that I had told Linda to put it in the agenda. So we'll go right to the executive session. Before we go to executive session, anything else that needs to be addressed by the board? All right, can I get a motion to adjourn to executive session to get an update on negotiations with the PBA?
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried? No action anticipated.
You know, the